Everyone, welcome back to my vlog. So today I'm going to be talking all about my C-section. So I'm just going to talk to you about the procedure, my recovery so far. I'm going to show it to you. I did have a photo on Facebook, so I'll link that as well. Or I'll just pop it up in here somewhere, something like that. And then I had you ask your questions that you wanted to know about it. So if you follow my channel, you'll already know that the C-section was not scheduled. I was induced due to blood pressure problems and things like that, which is fairly typical for my pregnancies. Was in labor, was doing well, was getting really close, and then I felt like I needed to push. Midwife checked me and realized that Micah had actually flipped from head down to feet first, so he was footling breech, and he hadn't been the whole time. He was like in perfect position to be born and then decided to turn right at the last minute. So they decided to do an emergency C-section. So of course things may be a little different from person to person, but this is just my experience, and because it was an emergency C-section, my experience is obviously going to be a little bit different to people who had an elective C-section. So when they told me I needed a C-section, they kind of just wheeled me down the corridor. I went in there and Martin had signed off my paperwork to say it was, you know, for permission and whatever else it is that he was signing, I don't know. They wheeled me in there and then they were trying to get lines in me, but I think that's not usual because I think I was actually meant to have lines in my arms before my induction even started, but I didn't. So normally you'd have an IV line already in you. So firstly they were putting IV line, trying to get an IV line in me, and once they'd done that, they turned me on my side and gave me a spinal. Now that was fantastic because I was getting this huge urge to push, and that spinal meant that that urge was completely gone. And once they gave me that, I just felt like I could finally just breathe a little bit. To be completely honest, either I was really high on gas or I was just like completely not with it at the time, but the spinal didn't hurt at all. I don't recall any pain from that at all. When I had an epidural with Roman, all you feel is a tiny sting when they give you the anesthetic, so that you don't actually feel the actual epidural going in. So it's actually really a piece of cake. In my opinion, it's a piece of cake. It's a tiny little prick and then you're numb, you know, so you're all good. But then they rolled me back on my back, and from what I remember, I think my bed was put on a slight slant, and they said that that was normal. They did it in all C-sections. I don't actually know why, so if you know, feel free to put it in the comments. I don't know whether it's to do something to do with like organs or blood, or something to do with like where they open you. Like I'm not quite sure why they need you on that slant, but I presume it's something to do with getting in there. Regardless, the slant was so slight to me that I barely even felt it. And then they put up a blue screen from your chest up so that obviously you can't see anything. I personally would have loved to have watched Micah come out, but obviously these kind of things don't happen in hospitals, not where I am anyway. Even if I'd asked, I don't know what they would have said. So then someone came up to me and they were either, I think they had some ice or something, and they were going, can you feel this, can you feel this, can you feel this, all the way up my body, and I'd be like, no, can't feel any of that. So obviously they're just making sure that that spinal was definitely working and that you weren't going to feel anything. So you do feel things in a C-section, you do, but it's not painful. You can feel tugging and pushing and your body's moving around like this, and it's very bizarre, and you can almost feel what they're doing, but it doesn't hurt at all. It's just a lot of weird movement. So in my C-section, everyone was really friendly. I had a couple of nurses around me just saying, you know, you're doing really well and stuff like that, and that was awesome. I think I was just kind of zoning in and out of sleep anyway, so I don't recall a lot of that. Martin was next to me. So if you get put to sleep though, if it is such an emergency that they don't even have time to give you a spinal and they've got to actually put you to sleep, you're not allowed your partner or anyone in there. So there was a whole bunch of pulling and tugging, and then next minute they're like, here's your baby, and they hold your baby up over the blue screen thing that's in front of you, and then your baby might cry or whatever, and then the baby gets passed off to a nurse, and then they go do all the checks and stuff. And it's fairly simple, uncomplicated. I mean, not for the surgeon that's doing it, but a fairly simple, uncomplicated procedure generally. Like if it's just normal and no complications. In mine, the only difference that they had to do was that they actually had to cut my uterus. I think it's called a T incision, don't quote me on this, but so a normal incision they cut just above your pubic bone, but then they had to cut some of my uterus up the other way because it started clamping down on Micah's head and he was a little bit stuck in that way, so they had to also cut an incision inside my uterus as well. So it was just a really quick like overview of how my C-section went. I felt like it went really well. I was happy with how it went, even though it wasn't planned. You know, so be it, my baby's here now. So recovery wise, yeah, not as fun as a vaginal birth at all. And a lot of your questions are, you know, how do I feel the differences between each birth? So because that's in a few questions, I'll just cover that now. So with my C-section, obviously you have had your, you know, stomach and muscle and all of that cut open and spread apart to get a baby out, and then they've probably moved some organs out the way potentially. I mean, every person's different, but there's a whole lot of movement of stuff in there. So it's actually, it is surgery, and I think a lot of us forget that when we go in for a C-section, that just because it's so common and so many women have C-sections and people choose to have C-sections, that doesn't make it any less serious. So you're still getting completely cut open. So recovery wise, it's like when you get a sore throat. You don't realize that your throat is there until you can't swallow or it hurts to swallow. It's like that with C-section. You don't realize what muscles you use to sit up in bed, to roll over, to walk, until you've got a giant cut in your abdomen. So like, and when you've got a newborn baby, you're up and down, up and down, up and down all the time. You're breastfeeding them, you're changing nappies. The one thing they do is obviously you have a catheter if you're going in for a C-section, and that stays in afterwards because you can't get up and just go to the toilet like a few hours after your C-section. I tried to, it was silly, I shouldn't have done that. They were like, what are you doing? Lay back down. So you've got a catheter, so you don't actually have to walk to the bathroom. So pulling myself up to a sitting position to then bend over and grab my baby out of the out of his little cot thing was really painful and really difficult. Like I definitely felt they had stitches. I felt that I had had surgery there. It was actually really quite nasty. That lasted for quite some time. Like I am 6 weeks post my C-section now, and on some parts of my incision I can still feel pulling when I'm pushing myself up into bed. Also getting into the car, I never realized how high Martin's car is until I was leaving the hospital and hoisting myself up into his vehicle. Every movement is just slow and painful. Whereas with a vaginal birth, and I've had 2 different vaginal births, one which was really quite bad and one that was fine. So Roman's one, he tore me really badly. I had to have surgery, had to be packed. It was really awful, really swollen, really sore, took a long time to heal, compared to Mila Rose's one where I had two stitches, I think. And honestly, like there may have been a little swelling down below in the lady parts, but other than that, it was like back to normal within a few weeks, you know. Whereas a C-section, like I said, 6 weeks on, and I'm still getting just out of that recovery phase now. Also, I didn't take it easy enough, and I've been bending down, and I've been hoisting around children, and I've been rushing here, there, and everywhere, and my incision actually got infected. So I've been on antibiotics for over a week now to just try and clear that up. And I'm 6 weeks post C-section, and I'm on flipping antibiotics, so that's my own fault. So a word to the wise, take it easy. When they tell you to take it easy, take them seriously and take it easy. If you've had a normal vaginal birth and you haven't had stitches or anything, like honestly the recovery is really fast. Like Mila Rose's, I walked out of that hospital feeling completely pretty much normal down there, you know. Like it's not a big deal. Having a really large tear and lots of stitches like Roman's one, I was quite swollen for a few days. By the time I left the hospital when he was 5 days old, I was starting to get on the mend. The swelling had slowly started to go down, but obviously the stitches were still there, and so I had to take that really carefully. You know, also getting into the car, just like the C-section, you can just feel that you've torn and that you've got stitches. Going to the toilet. So after Roman's, going to the toilet was a very scary experience because you're just so sore down there. I did have a catheter, but of course you still got to take a crap. So that was really nasty and really scary and really painful. Mila Rose, not a problem. C-section, I was warned that it's a really scary experience going for your first crap after a C-section. So I was kind of hyping myself up to that, and they want to know. They will not let you leave hospital until you have done a piss and until you have done a crap, and that they know everything is working fine, because obviously they've been messing around in that general kind of area in the surgery, and I don't know, maybe things get blocked up, maybe things can get moved, but they want to make sure that you can do all that before you leave the hospital. So peeing was fine, that was not a problem. They took the catheter out after I think a day or two. Took the catheter out, peeing was fine. Pooping and farting and coughing and sneezing, anything that puts pressure on that part of your body is terrifying. And just, I'll get back to that in a minute, but I also want to tell you is that once you've had a C-section, they didn't tell me in time, so I didn't know this, but take it easy when you're eating. So in my video, you probably heard me ask my sister to go and get me an iced chocolate. Not a good idea. Don't do that. Don't go eat a burger, don't go eat a big meal. Just take it easy, because you're going to bring it back up. And the lady who brought me my lunch also gave me a sick bag, and I was like, what the heck is this for? Now I know, it's because you can feel sick after you've had a C-section. So I had a banana, I had a sandwich, and then I had my iced chocolate, and then I puked it up. And you know what, when you puke, you use those muscles and it hurts. It's awful. So back to the pooping and everything. Coughing. With the coughing, my advice is to just hold the area and then cough. See, I can cough now, I don't feel anything, that's fine. Yeah, just like give it extra support and then do your coughing or your puking or your sneezing. It just helps a little bit. With the pooping, just be prepared to experience some weird feeling or potential pain. My cousin told me just to watch out for it. I got lucky, and pooping and peeing went perfectly fine after my C-section, thank goodness. For others it's not, so I'm just warning you that when it comes to that first poo, just be prepared. And if you need to ask for some sort of laxative or something to make everything pass kind of more gently, then do so. Bleeding, I don't think it's any different between a C-section and a vaginal birth. Yeah, so my postpartum bleeding has lasted the same length of time as it did with my 2 vaginal births. So for me, there was no difference in the length of time that I bled for. Right, now I'm just going to get to your questions. Someone said they cut you higher than I was cut with my 3 C-sections. They're literally just above my hairline. The picture that I showed you on Facebook is probably a little deceiving, and it might be like a little bit of an optical illusion, but my incision, which I will show you, is actually just above my pubic hair line as well. It just obviously looked a lot higher in that photo, but it is very low. Take it easy, it's so important. Even if you look okay on the outside, on the inside you are still healing. They cut through several layers to get to the uterus, and then there's a lot of pulling and things being moved out the way once they are in there. Correct, my midwife even said the same thing. She's like, even if you feel right on the outside, it is the inside that needs to do all the healing. And I have learnt my lesson now. So if you're going to have a C-section or you've had a C-section, sit your butt down. I'd like to know which delivery was easier and why. And I know it's a long way off, but if you have another baby, will you try for a VBAC or a scheduled C-section? So which one was easier? Mila Rose's definitely. So Roman's obviously wasn't quite normal. His was I had a 3rd degree TFM in surgery. So I'm going to go with Mila Rose's vaginal birth compared to a C-section. Way easier. Like, you give birth, you have a shower, and you may be slightly swollen, slightly tender, but then it goes away within a few days, a week, you know, kind of thing. Whereas the C-section, is a lot harder because you are healing from surgery. You've got to sit down, you've got to take it easy, you can only lift your baby, that's about it. And with 2 other kids and housework and stuff like that, it's really hard. So definitely a vaginal birth is a lot easier. The actual delivery, like, I mean, I had to go through labour before my C-section anyway. So obviously that was easier because I kind of just laid down and they cut me open and pulled my baby out. But obviously, if I didn't have to have labour, that would be easy. Whereas, obviously, going through labour and birthing, it's not called labour for nothing. It is hard work. And as for if we try for another baby, would we try for a VBAC or a scheduled C-section? I've been told by my midwife that I will have to have C-sections. If I have any more babies, they would be C-sections, and that's because of the other incision that they had to make in my uterus to get Micah out. So it's not so much this incision that goes this way, it was the other one. Too much risk for abruption and bleeding and all that kind of stuff, I think. So all my births from now on, if I were to have any more, have to be C-sections. To be honest, that is a big factor in our decision on whether we have another child or not, because it's been a rough road having a C-section and having another 2 kids. You said they had to cut your cervix during a C-section. I think you mean uterus. They did have to cut my uterus during the C-section the other way. Does that mean it could impact your chances of conceiving again or carrying another pregnancy? They didn't mention anything. They didn't say that. They just said that if I have another baby, the birth would be a C-section. Do you think your midwives who cared for you in the hospital could have done better or differently to support you post C-section? They were great, and I think it was more my pride that got in the way. Like, whenever Micah cried and I needed to sit myself up and get him, it was really painful and it was really hard and it was really slow going. And when your baby wakes up every 10 minutes or half an hour, every hour really, and you've got to move, it's really hard. I mean, I had my call bell. They told me to call if I needed them, and I should have done it, but I just felt guilty. I felt guilty if I needed to call them all the time. So I just did it. I just forced myself to get up and get my baby and change his nappy and all of that stuff. So but in general, they were great. They were really caring, really helpful. Any questions I had, they helped me with breastfeeding, they helped me with feeding him with the syringe, they helped me with. They were all wonderful, and I should have taken more advantage on calling them when I needed them. That's what they're there for. I remember my first C-section was done the same way as yours. Classic T C-section, horizontal incision on the bikini line and a vertical incision on the uterus. It was a bigger recovery than a normal C-section, and mine was infected because I was overdoing it. There you go. That's the thing. Don't overdo it. If you have another, it definitely means another C-section if you have another baby, because you can't risk even going into labour or rupture the uterus. Can't even risk going into labour? Good grief. Just want to know your thoughts on the difference in delivery or recovery versus vaginally. I kind of talked about that a little bit. Would you prefer C-section or vaginal birth, seeing you've experienced both, and why? Definitely vaginal birth. I mean, you have to go through the labour and birth, but once that's done, it's done. And if you don't need stitches and it's all generally normal, your recovery is very, very minimal. What kind of advice did you get from the hospital post C-section? Would be interesting to see if it's different from country to country. Take it easy was the #1 thing. To not worry about my stitches. They'll just kind of come out, or they'll dissolvable or something, and just to look at it, keep an eye on it, see if there was any redness or oozing or swelling or anything like that, and if I had anything like that, to let my midwife know immediately. A little tip I have, which was I was told by my midwife, is if you don't have the granny panties that go up over your incision, put a pad in. So I had a pad sitting on my incision, and then my undies there couldn't rub on my actual incision line because I only had a few pairs of granny panties. And then I went back to my normal undies to try and feel a little normal, but they do sit literally on that incision, the exact same spot. So put a pad there. Feels wonderful, actually. It was great having that extra padding there. Yeah, so that's pretty much all the kind of information I got before I left the hospital. But your midwife in New Zealand, like, you have a midwife as well, and she came and checked up on me like the next day and the day after, so she would have given me some information at the time too if I had any questions. It looks sore. I still feel my scars kind of itchy at times, and that's 10 weeks later. I mean, that's just your incision healing. It's just like getting any sort of cut really, that when that healing happens and you get that scab, it gets itchy. So that's kind of like the feeling that I have on my incision occasionally. It's not all the time, and it's getting a lot better now. Oh, it's longer than I expected. Was it bigger than you were expecting? No, it's kind of like what I was expecting. I didn't really know how long C-section scars were anyway, so I didn't really have anything to compare to, but I'm happy with how it looks, and I'm not worried, and I'm not a bikini kind of person anyway, so I'm not really concerned with how long it is. But yeah, I don't really know if it's normal or not. Loving your family's videos, thank you. I get so excited for them. My question is, do you think you will have another baby? I think that's for another vlog, because there's a lot me and Martin have been, even with Micah only being 6 weeks old and not sleeping through the night and actually being a really hard baby, the fourth baby thing has been in discussion almost every day, and the answer right now is not sure. There's a lot of factors that come in with that, especially the fact that I know that I'd have to have another C-section, the fact that Martin's car only fits 5 and so we're full there now. This bedroom, I mean, if we had another boy we could do bunk beds, but obviously we're starting to get a bit squishy. There's so many factors on the fourth baby thing, you know. It's kind of like, do we? And yeah, so we're not quite sure yet. That's probably, I'll do another video on that probably in another year or something. We probably would have made up our minds by then. Really longer than mine. Is that because of his position? That's 2 people that said that it's longer, so maybe it is a lot longer, and for that reason I have no idea why it may be longer. Actually, to be honest, maybe it's because he was so low down in my pelvis because he was ready to be born, that maybe they did have to cut it longer to kind of try and pull him out, maybe get his feet out perhaps, I'm not sure. Right, so that's all your questions, so let's look at my incision, and that will be the end of my video. But if you have any further questions, please put them in the comments below and I'll try and answer them for you. Okay guys, so here's my incision. So the only thing that I'm really gutted about with my C-section is now this pouch. As you can see, it hangs over my incision, and of course that was obviously partly from just having a pregnancy and my stomach's gotten a bit saggier, but it never used to do that, and now my incision is like I have to lift up. I've never had to lift up my stomach before. That's what it looks like. And all this redness here, partly infection, partly because my stomach hangs down now. Yeah, so this bit here is the bit that I feel splitting every time I sit up in bed, and that's obviously a lot redder than some of the other bits. Yeah, but it's, in general, it's healing okay now that I've got my antibiotics going. And also, completely numb, right there, numb. Yeah, I can feel there. Numb. So from there all the way along to there, completely numb. And how far up? To there. So all that's numb. Alright guys, I know this is up close. Thank you so much for watching, and yeah, so that's all about my C-section, and everybody's experience is different, but that's just mine. Like I said, got any questions, put it below. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and I will see you guys in my next vlog. But we're doing good, we're coping, we're getting there, and now that my C-section recovery is a lot smoother now, I'm feeling a lot happier. Alright guys, thanks for watching. See ya!